The moment you begin arguing with someone who disrespects you, you have already lost. Not the argument itself, but something far more valuable: your dignity, your peace, your power. This is not obvious to most people. We are taught from childhood that defending ourselves is noble, that standing up for ourselves requires verbal combat, that silence in the face of disrespect equals weakness. But the Stoics knew something that modern culture has forgotten. They knew that the person who needs to argue is the person without power. The person who needs to beg is the person without options. And the person who can walk away from both is the person who understands their true worth. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire on earth, yet he wrote in his private journal, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." Not to argue back, not to defend yourself elaborately. To be so fundamentally different that their disrespect cannot touch you. This was not about being passive. Marcus commanded armies, made life and death decisions, dealt with conspiracies and betrayals daily. But he understood that not every attack deserves a response. In fact, most attacks are traps, invitations to lower yourself to someone else's level, to waste your energy on people who do not matter. Think about the last time someone disrespected you. Maybe they questioned your abilities in front of others. Maybe they dismissed something important to you. Maybe they spoke to you with contempt or treated you as though you were insignificant. What did you do? If you are like most people, you felt a surge of emotion, an urgent need to correct them, to defend yourself, to make them understand. You probably rehearsed responses in your mind for hours afterward. You probably told other people what happened, seeking validation. You probably let that moment consume far more of your time and energy than it deserved. This is what disrespect does when you react to it. It expands. It occupies space in your mind. It becomes more significant than it ever should have been. The wise handle this differently. When Epictetus was a slave, he was disrespected constantly. He had no social power, no legal rights, no platform to defend himself. Yet he became one of the most influential philosophers in history because he understood a simple truth. Your worth is not determined by how others treat you. It is determined by who you are when no one is watching. He did not argue with masters who insulted him. He did not beg for better treatment. He maintained his inner dignity regardless of external circumstances. This was not weakness. This was the purest form of strength. Seneca, who moved in the highest circles of Roman society, dealt with disrespect from a different position. He had wealth, influence, connections. He could have used his power to destroy people who disrespected him. Instead, he chose silence and distance. He wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." He understood that immediate response to disrespect almost always makes things worse. The person who can pause, breathe, and choose not to engage has access to a power that the person who must immediately defend themselves does not. This goes against everything modern culture teaches. We live in an age of clapbacks and callouts, where the fastest, sharpest response is celebrated as strength. Social media has turned disrespect into entertainment and response into performance. We are taught that if you do not defend yourself publicly and immediately, you are weak. But this is backwards. The person who needs the crowd to validate their worth is weak. The person who knows their worth regardless of the crowd is strong. Here's what happens when you argue with someone who disrespects you. You give them what they want: your attention, your energy, your emotional reaction. Disrespect is often a test. The person wants to see if they can control you, if they can make you react, if they can pull you out of your center. Every second you spend arguing is a second you have given them control. Every word you use to defend yourself is evidence that their opinion matters to you. And the moment their opinion matters, they have power over you. The same dynamic applies to begging. When you beg someone for respect, for understanding, for fair treatment, you are communicating something devastating. That you believe they have something you need, that your worth depends on their acknowledgement. This is never true, but begging makes it seem true. It inverts the power dynamic completely. The person being begged holds all the cards. The person begging has surrendered everything. Stoic philosophy offers a different path entirely. When someone disrespects you, you have three options, but only one of them preserves your power. The first option is to argue, to engage, to defend yourself. This makes the disrespect more real by acknowledging it as significant. The second option is to beg, to explain, to convince them of your worth. This makes their judgment the determining factor in your value. The third option, the Stoic option, is to withdraw your attention entirely. To recognize that their disrespect reveals something about them, not about you. To let them have their opinion while you remain untouched by it. This is not about being cold or uncaring. It is about being discerning. Not everyone deserves access to you. Not every opinion deserves consideration. Not every attack deserves a defense. The Stoics were masters at distinguishing between meaningful feedback from people they respected and meaningless noise from people whose judgment was worthless. When Marcus Aurelius received genuine criticism from his philosophy teachers, he listened carefully and adjusted his behavior. When he received attacks from political enemies, he barely acknowledged them. The difference was not in the content but in the source. Ask yourself right now, whose respect actually matters to you? Not whose respect you wish you had, but whose respect genuinely matters for your growth, your goals, your integrity. That list should be very short. Maybe 5 people, maybe 10. Everyone else is noise. When someone outside that small circle disrespects you, why would you argue with them? Why would you beg them to see your value? Their perception is irrelevant to your actual worth. The trap most people fall into is treating all disrespect as equally significant. Someone you barely know makes a dismissive comment, and you react as strongly as if your mentor had questioned your character. This is a fundamental error in judgment. The Stoics practiced constant evaluation of what deserves their attention. They had a mental filter that separated signal from noise. When noise appeared, they did not engage with it. They certainly did not lower themselves to its level. Epictetus taught his students a practice that changes everything. If someone speaks badly of you, consider whether what they say is true. If it is true, correct it. If it is not true, laugh at it. Notice what is missing from this instruction. There is no arguing, no defending, no explaining yourself to people whose judgment is faulty. You either learn from valid criticism or dismiss invalid criticism. But you never waste energy trying to change the mind of someone who has already decided to misunderstand you. This is particularly important in the modern context where disrespect is often public. Someone criticizes you online where others can see. Every instinct screams to defend yourself publicly, to correct the record, to ensure everyone knows their version is wrong. But the wise understand that public defense often backfires. It draws more attention to the attack. It makes you look defensive. It suggests that you are unsure of your own position. The strongest response is often no response. Let their words hang in the air, unsupported by your reaction. Most people will see the attack for what it is without you saying a word. Before we go deeper into the specific techniques the Stoics used, I want to ask you directly, are you tired of giving your power away to people who do not deserve it? Are you ready to learn how to maintain your dignity regardless of how others behave? If so, subscribe to this channel. We explore these principles not as abstract philosophy but as practical tools for navigating a world full of people who will test your boundaries, question your worth, and attempt to pull you into pointless conflict. This is your training ground. The execution of this principle requires specific practices. Understanding that you should not argue or beg is one thing. Actually maintaining that standard in the moment of disrespect is another. Your emotional system is wired to react defensively when attacked. Your ego wants vindication. Your sense of justice demands that wrongs be corrected. Working against these impulses requires technique, and the Stoics developed several that remain devastatingly effective 2,000 years later. The first technique is the pause. When someone disrespects you, your immediate reaction is emotional. Anger, hurt, indignation, the need to respond. This reaction happens in milliseconds, far faster than rational thought. The pause is the gap you create between stimulus and response. Seneca called this delay the greatest remedy for anger. In modern terms, we would say it activates your prefrontal cortex, allowing rational evaluation instead of emotional reaction. But the mechanism is less important than the practice. Here is how you implement the pause. When disrespect occurs, count to 10 before you do anything. Not quickly, slowly, or take 3 deep breaths, or excuse yourself from the situation temporarily. The specific method matters less than creating space between the attack and your response. In that space, ask yourself one question. Will engaging with this person and this situation improve my life or diminish it? Almost always, the honest answer is that it will diminish it. Arguing takes time. It creates stress. It rarely changes anyone's mind. And even if you win the argument, what have you won? The approval of someone whose opinion should not matter to you? The second technique is perspective taking, specifically taking the view from above that Marcus Aurelius practiced constantly. When someone disrespects you, zoom out. See yourself and this person from a distance. See how small this moment is in the context of your entire life. See how little this person's opinion matters in the scope of what you are building. Marcus would imagine himself from space, looking down at the empire, seeing how tiny any individual conflict was compared to the vastness of existence. This was not escapism. This was proportion. Most disrespect shrinks to nothing when you see it in proper scale. From this elevated view, you can see something else. The disrespect usually reveals more about the other person than about you. People who feel powerful and secure do not go around disrespecting others. They have no need to. Disrespect is almost always a sign of internal weakness, insecurity, or pain that has nothing to do with you. You are simply the available target. Seneca wrote that, "We are injured and insulted more by the way we respond to things than by the things themselves." The injury is not in their words. It is in your decision to let those words matter. The third technique is status clarification. The Stoics had a clear internal hierarchy of whose opinions mattered and whose did not. They would mentally categorize people into circles based on wisdom, virtue, and relevance to their goals. Someone in the inner circle, a trusted mentor or close friend, could offer criticism that deserved serious consideration. Someone in the outer circles, acquaintances or strangers, had opinions that were simply irrelevant. When disrespect came from someone in the outer circles, it was not even worth processing. It was like rain falling, a natural occurrence that required no emotional response. Practice this categorization explicitly. Write down the names of people whose respect you genuinely value and whose disrespect would be meaningful information. This list should be very short. Everyone else is automatically in a category labeled irrelevant opinions. When someone from the irrelevant category disrespects you, you are not ignoring them to be superior. You are simply recognizing reality. Their judgment has no bearing on your actual worth or your path forward. This is not arrogance. This is clarity. The fourth technique is reframing the interaction. When someone tries to provoke you into argument or make you beg for their approval, They are attempting to pull you into their frame, their reality, their game. Do not accept the invitation. Epictetus taught that you always have the power to refuse to play games you did not choose. Someone insults your work. They are inviting you to defend it, which puts them in the position of judge and you in the position of defendant. Refuse the frame. Your work speaks for itself. Their inability to appreciate it is their limitation, not your problem. This reframing extends to understanding the mechanics of disrespect. Often, people disrespect you because they need something from you and they are trying to establish dominance. A colleague who publicly questions your competence may be threatened by your abilities. A friend who belittles your goals may be uncomfortable with your growth because it highlights their stagnation. Someone who treats you with contempt may be testing whether you will tolerate poor treatment. In every case, arguing or begging confirms their frame. Walking away establishes yours. The fifth technique is strategic withdrawal. This is perhaps the most powerful and least understood. When the Stoics encountered persistent disrespect, they did not argue endlessly or beg for better treatment. They simply withdrew their presence. Marcus Aurelius had to work with senators who despised him. He did not try to win them over. He minimized contact and focused his energy on people who shared his values. Seneca faced constant political attacks. He did not defend himself in the forum. He eventually withdrew from public life entirely and focused on his writing. Epictetus taught his students to exit relationships that required them to compromise their dignity. Modern culture sees withdrawal as weakness, as running away. But strategic withdrawal is one of the strongest moves available. It says, I do not need you to respect me. I do not need you to understand me. I am complete without your validation. This is terrifying to people who rely on controlling others through disrespect. They escalate, trying to get a reaction. Let them escalate into emptiness, the space where you used to be. Withdrawal does not always mean cutting someone off completely, though sometimes it does. Often it means reducing access. Someone who disrespects you gets less of your time, less of your energy, less of your trust. You are cordial but distant. You are professional but not personal. You answer their questions but do not share your thoughts. You maintain boundaries without explaining or justifying those boundaries. Boundaries that require explanation are not boundaries. They are negotiations, and you are not negotiating with people who have demonstrated they do not respect you. The sixth technique is investing elsewhere. This is the positive complement to withdrawal. When you stop wasting energy arguing with people who disrespect you or begging them to see your worth, you suddenly have enormous amounts of energy available. Channel that energy into relationships with people who do respect you, into work that matters, into growth that compounds. The Stoics understood that time and attention are your most valuable resources. Every minute spent on people who diminish you is a minute stolen from people who elevate you. Build a practice of regular evaluation. Once a month, review where your energy is going. How much time are you spending with people who respect you versus people who do not? How much mental space are you giving to critics versus supporters? How much emotional energy are you burning on conflict versus creation? If the balance is wrong, adjust. Cut the dead weight. Not dramatically, not with announcements or confrontations, just quietly reduce and redirect. The people who matter will remain. The people who do not will fade. This is natural selection for relationships. The seventh technique, and perhaps the most challenging, is eliminating the need for external validation entirely. This is the ultimate goal of Stoic practice. As long as you need other people to confirm your worth, you are vulnerable to their disrespect. As long as their opinions can wound you, they have power over you. The work is to build your sense of worth entirely on internal standards. Am I living according to my principles? Am I growing? Am I contributing? If the answers are yes, then external disrespect becomes background noise, unpleasant perhaps, but ultimately meaningless. This does not happen overnight. It is a gradual process of building evidence for yourself. Every time you maintain your dignity in the face of disrespect, you prove to yourself that you do not need their approval. Every time you choose distance over argument, you strengthen your internal validation system. Every time you focus on your work instead of on your critics, you build unshakable confidence. The goal is not to become immune to all criticism. The goal is to become selectively permeable, open to feedback from people you respect, impervious to attacks from people you do not. As we approach the halfway point, consider this. How much of your life have you spent trying to convince people of your worth who were never going to see it? How much energy have you burned arguing with people who have already decided what they think? Subscribe to this channel if you are ready to reclaim that energy. This is not about becoming cold or uncaring. This is about becoming strategic with your most valuable resource, your attention. Let us address the difficult truth that most people avoid. Sometimes disrespect comes from people who are supposed to respect you. Family members, long-term friends, romantic partners, colleagues you have worked with for years. This is where the principle of never arguing or begging becomes most challenging, because these relationships have history, context, emotional investment. Walking away from a stranger's disrespect is easy. Walking away from disrespect within your inner circle feels like betrayal, like giving up, like failure. But the Stoics would say this is exactly when the principle matters most. Marcus Aurelius dealt with family members who conspired against him. Seneca had close friends who turned on him politically. Epictetus taught students who later used his teachings to attack him. None of them begged these people to return to proper behavior. None of them argued endlessly trying to fix the relationship. They acknowledged the reality that people change, that relationships evolve, and that sometimes people you once respected reveal themselves to be unworthy of that respect. The key distinction is between someone who disrespects you once in a moment of stress or conflict, and someone who disrespects you as a pattern. Everyone has bad days. Everyone says things they regret. A single instance of disrespect from someone who normally respects you might deserve a conversation, a clearing of the air, a mutual understanding. But pattern disrespect, the kind where someone repeatedly treats you as less than you are, that is different. That is not a communication problem. That is a character revelation. When someone close to you establishes a pattern of disrespect, you have a choice. You can keep trying to fix it, explaining how their behavior hurts you, asking them to change, essentially begging for the respect they are choosing not to give. Or you can accept what they are showing you and adjust your relationship accordingly. Arguing about whether they should respect you is pointless. They know they should. They are choosing not to. That choice tells you everything you need to know. Seneca wrote extensively about disappointing friendships. He did not advocate cutting people off at the first sign of trouble. But he was clear that when someone shows you who they are through consistent disrespect, believe them. Do not make excuses for them. Do not explain their behavior away with stress or circumstances. Accept that this is who they are now, whatever they used to be. Then decide what level of access someone with this character deserves in your life. This is particularly painful with family, because we are taught that family is forever, that you should tolerate behavior from family that you would never accept from strangers. But this is a cultural story, not a universal truth. The Stoics believed in chosen family, in surrounding yourself with people of virtue regardless of blood relation. Marcus Aurelius was grateful for his adoptive father who taught him philosophy, not his biological father who was absent. He understood that respect is earned through behavior, not guaranteed through genetics. If a family member consistently disrespects you, you have the same options as with anyone else. You can reduce contact. You can maintain surface-level relationships without emotional investment. You can set hard boundaries about what behavior you will and will not accept. What you cannot do, without losing yourself, is keep begging them to see your worth or keep arguing about why they should treat you better. They know why. They are choosing differently. Honor their choice by making your own. The same principle applies in romantic relationships, where disrespect is often disguised as jokes, criticism, for your own good, or explosive arguments followed by apologies. The pattern is what matters. If your partner establishes a pattern of treating you without respect, having the same argument repeatedly about why that is unacceptable is a waste of your life. One clear conversation about what will and will not be tolerated, followed by action if nothing changes, is the only response that maintains your dignity. The Stoic approach here is not to issue ultimatums or make threats. It is to be clear about your standards and then follow through. I do not accept being spoken to this way. If it continues, I will need to reconsider this relationship. Not said in anger, not said as manipulation, said as simple fact. Then, if the behavior continues, you follow through. No more discussions. No more chances. No more explaining why you deserve basic respect. You simply act on the information they have given you about who they are. This is where most people fail. They set boundaries but do not enforce them. They say disrespect is unacceptable but then accept it again and again. Every time you accept disrespect after saying you would not, you teach the other person that your words mean nothing. You train them to ignore your boundaries. You confirm that arguing and begging are your only tools. Breaking this pattern requires something most people find incredibly difficult. You have to care more about your self-respect than about maintaining the relationship. Epictetus had a saying that cuts to the heart of this. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Applying this to relationships, if you want to maintain your dignity, be content with being thought too sensitive, too rigid, too unforgiving by people who want to keep disrespecting you. They will call your boundaries unreasonable. They will say you are overreacting. They will tell mutual friends that you changed, that you are not the person you used to be. Let them. The person you used to be accepted disrespect. The person you are now does not. Another layer of complexity is professional relationships. You cannot always walk away from disrespectful colleagues or bosses. You need the job. You need the income. This is real, and the Stoics acknowledged this reality. Epictetus was a slave for years. He could not walk away. But he could maintain internal dignity while strategically managing external relationships. He could refuse to argue or beg while still being professionally functional. The key was complete separation between his sense of self-worth and anything his masters said or did. If you are in a professional situation with persistent disrespect, the Stoic approach is threefold. First, become emotionally detached. This is a transaction, not a relationship. You provide work. They provide payment. Their disrespect is irrelevant noise. Second, document everything and protect yourself legally and professionally. Do not argue in the moment, but keep records of what happens. Third, actively work toward exit. Save money. Build skills. Make connections. Your goal is to reach a position where their disrespect cannot touch you because you have options. This might take months or years, but having an exit strategy transforms your experience even before you execute it. The underlying principle across all these contexts is the same. Your dignity is not negotiable. It is not up for debate. It is not something you argue people into respecting. It is something you maintain by refusing to participate in interactions that violate it. When someone disrespects you, they are inviting you to lower yourself. When you argue or beg, you accept that invitation. When you maintain your dignity and adjust your behavior accordingly, you decline the invitation. You stay on your level regardless of what level they choose to operate from. This does not mean you become harsh or cold. It means you become clear. You can be kind to people without giving them access to hurt you. You can be professional without being personal. You can be cordial without being close. The Stoics practiced what we might call friendly distance with people who had shown themselves unworthy of deeper trust. Surface-level pleasantness with zero emotional investment. This is not fake. This is appropriate calibration based on what someone has demonstrated they deserve. Now we arrive at the deepest layer of this teaching, the internal work required to actually live by this principle. Because the truth is, most people cannot stop arguing or begging not because they do not understand the concept intellectually, but because they have deep psychological needs that arguing and begging temporarily fulfill. Understanding these needs and finding healthier ways to meet them is the real work. The first need is the need to be understood. When someone disrespects you, especially if they mischaracterize who you are or what you stand for, the urge to correct them is overwhelming. You think, if they just understood the real me, they would not treat me this way. So you explain, you clarify, you provide context, you essentially beg them to see you accurately. But here is what the Stoics understood. Being understood by everyone is neither possible nor necessary. Most people will see you through their own filters, projecting their own issues onto you. You cannot control this. The only understanding that matters is your own understanding of yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." This is the core issue. If you genuinely knew your own worth, other people's misunderstanding would not wound you. The fact that it does wound you reveals that you are looking for external confirmation of what you should be confirming internally. The work is not to make others understand you. The work is to understand yourself so completely that their misunderstanding becomes irrelevant. Practice this. When someone disrespects you based on a misunderstanding of who you are, instead of rushing to correct them, take it as information about yourself. Ask, why does their misunderstanding bother me? What am I uncertain about in myself that makes me need their accurate perception? Usually, you will find that the areas where you most need others to understand you are the areas where you least understand yourself. Strengthen your self-knowledge, and external misunderstanding loses its power. The second need is the need for justice. We have a deep sense that the world should be fair, that disrespect should be corrected, that wrong perceptions should be made right. So when someone disrespects you and gets away with it, when they face no consequences for treating you poorly, something inside you screams that this is wrong. You want to argue not just to defend yourself, but to restore cosmic balance. You want them to acknowledge that they were wrong and you were right. This need for justice keeps